And getting started. We're having some technical difficulties with the equipment. We're going to get going, and the AV team is going to try to bring up the other projector because we're going to have some great presentations today. If you've looked ahead to the agenda, you know we've been talking about some of the progressive things that are going on in South Carolina, Texas, Michigan, Kansas, and South Carolina. And today we're going to have speakers from those areas. We've got some great information they're going to share with you, and I'm looking forward to that. Of course, we're going to be working in our teams this morning after the first panel discussion, and then in the afternoon after the second, and really hopefully making some tremendous headway in your action plans. We want to start off by reviewing the sessions that took place yesterday afternoon, the peer-to-peer sessions. And before we do, when we hear the report outs from the various groups, we had a little debriefing session with the facilitators yesterday, and they all said, well, geez, we had some great discussions. There was a lot of ideas, a lot of comments, a lot of sharing that took place in those sessions. But one of the things that seemed fairly common is that people were a little confused about the community of practice, the Office of Apprenticeship Community of Practice. So I thought it'd be good this morning to start off with a clarification. You know, yesterday I asked the question of how many people have been on the Community of Practice website, and, you know, hands were kind of going up like this. People were really hesitant. You know, were they on it or were they not? I think part of the problem is when we say the Apprenticeship, Office of Apprenticeship Community of Practice website, people get confused with the DOL, the Department of Labor website, which also has a page for the Office of Apprenticeship. There is a specific Community of Practice site that's dynamic, that's interactive, that we were speaking about the other day. This is the link to it. I know it doesn't show up too well on the PowerPoint here, but it's 21stcenturyapprenticeship.workforce31.org. So you're actually getting on Workforce 3.1 to do this. I thought I would just get a screenshot, a couple of screenshots here so you can see what we're talking about. You know, we have here, you'll see over here on the left-hand side, there's a box with our logo, Collaborate for Success, Partnering for Registered Apprenticeship. Well, already, as of last night, when I took the shot to put it into the PowerPoints, there was already an article about the pre-apprenticeship listening session that took place yesterday morning that was already posted. So this is dynamic, it's up to date. And I would highly recommend going there as a resource to find out information about what other states are doing. What are the latest developments going on in apprenticeship? Maybe you can, you know, post something to the site. And it's a great resource. You'll notice that on the top line, one of the, on the menu bar, there's one called Action Clinics. Okay? And here is a site, a shot of what that site looks like. Oh, it looks like we got the other PowerPoint, the other projector up. You'll notice here under Resources, there are various articles and documents that are going to be of extreme interest to you. The first one up there is Registered Apprenticeship 101, and further down is Introduction to WIA, Workforce Investment Act 101. I think it became clear to some of the facilitators yesterday that there were still some basic questions about apprenticeship, about workforce, about what's allowable, what's not, particularly with regard to performance measures. You know, there are a lot of misconceptions out there that with registered apprenticeship you have to wait 4 years until you can take credit for the placement. That is absolutely not true. If you've been working with someone in core and intensive services and they get placed in apprenticeship, that is a job, and you can count and record that and track it in the common measures. And all of this is spelled out. And for those of you who need to see it in writing and you need to see more detail, it's there. So again, I would encourage you, if you have any questions before you leave here, you know, try to access it tonight. If you have any questions about it, ask someone here, ask one of the OA staff or one of the facilitators. It's a great resource, and I highly recommend using it. Okay, just one other thing I want to mention before we go into the peer-to-peer report outs, and that is I want to draw your attention to Teagle 0207, which is under resource materials, section 10. I'd ask you for a minute just to look in your binder and flip over to section 10. I just flipped over my whole binder. Okay, TEAGL, most people, this is foreign language. We're talking about a training employment guidance letter. These are technical documents that are issued by the Department of Labor. This one in particular, you've heard us referencing. It's a landmark TEAGL, and the version that's in your binder is what we're calling a user-friendly version that the Office of Apprenticeship put together to make it just a little bit easier to find your way around. And it contains all of the same information that you're going to find on the original TEAGL that was issued. And you'll notice there's a table of contents there. And you know, depending on what you're looking for, WIA performance and how to calculate it, or various topics, it'll tell you what page it's on. So you don't have to work your way through the whole TEAGL to try to find a particular section or an answer to a particular question. Would just highly recommend that you read that. I know it can, these things can seem a little bit onerous, but there's a lot of great information about this, I think, landmark TEAGL that really set the course for the direction of apprenticeship for at least the next decade, I'm sure, and probably beyond. Okay, with all that having said, I'm really eager to hear from the groups. I understand they were great, a lot of information sharing. We're going to get started now. Let's see, where should we start? Who here was in the local workforce agency group? Okay, we have a spokesperson. We're going to get the mics. Facilitators, can you man the mics here? Thank you. Please tell us your name, where you're from, and then you can report out.
Great. My name is Lauren Hunter. I'm from Massachusetts, and I work for the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts, and of course, I would go first. So in the local workforce agency group, we came up with 3 key points, and the first one was get the right partners at the table and start with common ground, and that essentially means that we need to have decision makers and not gatekeepers at the table, and of course, the higher up you go, the harder that is to do, but that's one of the things that we should start with. And another thing is start with common ground, the one that initially brought everyone to the table, and build on that. Also, be aware of mission creep and keep the scope and objective aligned. The second thing we came up with is leverage funding and resources, which is essentially means to find a sustainable way to stack funding. So for a lot of times, WIA only pays for $4,000 or whatever it is of training, and that would only pay for like a pre-apprentice program that wouldn't cover an apprenticeship training and then on-the-job training. So essentially a person would only get to do one of those things off of the funding that they have already acquired. And then it's create sustainability plans, so finding other funding sources to run programs. The third thing is expanding apprenticeship opportunities to other industries and occupations.
Great, thank you. Yes, let's round of applause. One of the things I heard there is, I believe, is having the right people at the table. Was that one of your first points? Yeah, I'd just like to emphasize that. You know, even though you form your state teams, it's not too late to add members to your state teams when you go back. One of the things you might talk about in your breakout sessions is who needs to be at your table who's not there now. You know, as you start coming up with different ideas and strategies, things you want to do, you might need to invite other people to the table to make it happen. Okay, next group. How about someone from education? Who's here from education? Okay, gentleman in the back.
Good morning. Eduardo Canero, State Director, Career Technical and Adult Education, GD Administrator, Virgin Islands. In education, we came with some realizations. Education realized the need to bridge the conversation from lifelong learners to lifelong income producers.
Whoa! Would you repeat that? Would you repeat that for us?
Education, bridging the connection from lifelong learners to lifelong income producers.
Wow. We got to write that down.
Registered apprenticeships provides people with the credentials that they can take anywhere and be marketable. We also said that we need to bridge partnerships and build partnerships to build relationships among stakeholders. And it has to be relative and equitable to all. Education says that we also need to be good listeners to industry and to all other partners. And we also have to be flexible, not supposed to be so rigid within our curriculums that we cannot adjust to the demand needs of the economy.
Excellent, thank you. You know, heard a lot of great things there, including that opening quote. But one of the things he mentioned was that we have to be better listeners. Now, he was referring to the education system, but you know what? That applies to all of us. I mean, you know, in doing this collaboration, all of us have our own interests, our own goals, our own agendas, and in collaboration, you got to make that step to listening to the other organization, finding out what their win is. What is a win for that organization so that we can create win-win situations. And those win-win situations are what make for effective partnerships. Everybody needs to win. Okay, how about state workforce agencies? State workforce agencies. Who do we have here? Another gentleman in the back.
Good morning. The first thing we did is identification of all the stakeholders and who's in, similar like the person before, and most importantly, deciding who was going to be the driver for this. And then a need to identify and refocus resources, because you have to find out who's in your group and what resources they have, and then refocus those resources towards that end, avoiding any, I forgot the term that was used yesterday, but basically it's initiative du jour.
Initiative du jour, okay.
Market the plan and repackage your message so that you market the plan all the time to the people that are on your council, to the employers that are not, that you want to get involved, as well as to participants, people who may take part in the apprenticeship process. And then have a plan that makes better use of all partners, national, state, local, and non-governmental. Getting that good mix in and deciding who should be in there and using them to the ultimate. You find out basically what their best skills are. And then most importantly, measure your outcomes so you're able, number one, to brag about your program and to go back and fix the things that are not working that well.
Great, thank you. How about someone from the group stakeholder organizations? This stakeholder organizations is an umbrella term for organizations that don't fit neatly into these other categories that we have, but nevertheless have a vested interest in apprenticeship. Who's going to report out for stakeholder? Yes, ma'am, back here. Here, I'll let you take my mic here.
Good morning, Nicole Bertrand from New York City. We actually had a sort of glass menagerie of a group. We had organizations in varying stages of the organizational life cycle. So some folks were just starting out, some folks have been doing this for 30 years. But what was interesting was that we all were still sort of facing similar challenges in terms of stakeholders, from the intractable social service issues of the populations we're serving to the delivery of qualified candidates to our employer clients. Microphones make me nervous. But what we came up with was, in terms of partnership activities, was the importance of relationship development, leveraging political agendas and political stakeholders, and getting folks to the table, creating an effective communication structure, and involving employers in the whole entire process, from candidate selection to curriculum and so on and so forth. So it was a productive session.
Thank you. I noticed one of the things you mentioned is involving employers in all aspects of this, which I think is a really important point. So why don't we go next to the business group, who